And what about the future president? Well, you can have any attitude toward him, because during his first iteration as president, he was dubbed as mostly a businessman, that he is not very well versed in politics. He can make a lot of mistakes. But from the outset, I can tell you that his behavior when there was an attempt on his life, I was impressed. He's a courageous person. And it's not just about the hand he raised and his call to fight for their common values and ideals. Of course, there was a rush of adrenaline, but a person shows their true color in these emergencies. And this is precisely one of those cases, and I think he acquitted himself admirably in a valiant fashion as a man. As far as politics is concerned, I don't know, during his first presidency, I don't know whether he's going to hear that, but I think I'm going to say that regardless. I think he was harassed by everyone on all sides, bullied. He was afraid of making a step to the left or to the right, saying the wrong thing. I don't know what's going to happen right now during his new presidency, because this is going to be his last presidency. Whatever he does, it's up to him to decide. But what he's been saying publicly up until now, I would be loath to comment on what was said during the electoral campaign, because, that was a deliberate thing to fight for votes. But regardless, what he said about his desire to rebuild relations with Russia, to facilitate an end to the Ukrainian crisis, I think this deserves attention at the very least, and I would like to take this opportunity to offer my congratulations on his election as President of the United States. As I said before, we're going to work with any head of state that is going to garner the trust of the American people, and this is what's going to happen in practice. And if he does what he has been promising, before the inauguration, if he makes a phone call, if he says, Vladimir, let's meet, I don't think it would be beneath me to call him myself. I'm simply not doing that because, at a certain point, the European Western leaders were calling me almost every week, and then they stopped all of a sudden, and you see we're still healthy, very well, we're developing. If anyone among them wants to rebuild contacts, as I said, we have nothing against that. We're always open. We will rebuild these contacts and have a sincere discussion. But so far, there are many people who want to engage in a discussion. They are here in this room. So you're willing to talk to Trump? Yes, we are. We're ready.
And my question is about Russia's China policy in the coming 4 years, as well as the future international system changes. Because we know Trump is back. Let me imagine if one day President Trump call you and ask that, let's join forces to contain China. What would you respond? And will you accept President Trump's suggestion, so-called uniting with Russia and resisting China? And my second question is about the future's international system change, because you often mentioned that international system is ongoing fundamental change. So in your eyes, what will the international order and framework in the future looks like? And in your eyes, in the future international order and the system, what role should Russia, China, United States act or plan in the future? And how do you consider to coordinate the triangle relationship among Russia, China, and the United States? Thank you.
Well, I'll give it a try. and I'll try to be as succinct as possible. First, China and Russia are cooperating and being friends, not against anyone. Our relationship with China is not aimed at any third party, the US included. Our relation with the People's Republic of China seek to develop and create a favorable environment for ensuring the security of both our nations and peoples. And the same applies to our relations with the United States of America. It would be very difficult for me to even imagine a situation when the president-elect makes such an offer as you mentioned. I think he understands that it is completely divorced from the realities in which we are living. Russia is not going to ally with anyone against anyone. And it seems even increasingly unrealistic to me with regard to China, because with China we've reached an unprecedented level of trust, mutual confidence and friendship. I think such countries as Russia and China that have such a big border and such a long history of coexistence in one space, despite the differences in our cultures, which, however, do espouse similar and common values. I think that in itself is a great achievement, and we have to use it right now, and we have to reinforce it and pass it down to forthcoming generations. As far as the possibility for establishing our relations with the US is concerned, we're open to these possibilities. To a large extent, the ball is in the US's court, because we were not the ones to sour relations with them. We did not introduce any restrictions or sanctions against the US, nor are we facilitating any armed conflicts in the territories in their proximity. We've never sought anything like that, and I would like to say that we've never done anything like that in practice. We do not quite see why the US seems it has the right to do that, and we are hopeful that at the end they will come to realize that they'd better refrain from doing that, because that's what they should be doing if we do not want any global conflicts. But the president-elect of the US, President Trump, spoke along similar lines, so we'll live and see how it plays out in reality. Keeping in mind, of course, that such an institution as the Presidency of the US is bound by certain obligations, by certain responsibilities. The President of the US is tied, to a certain extent, to those people who helped him arrive in power. You know, in the past, Jacques Chirac said, you know, what kind of democracy can we talk about in the US? Because without a billion, if you don't have $1 billion US in the pocket, you shouldn't even entertain the thought of participating in the elections, you know, let alone participate in practice. And those people who provide those billions, they participate in building the future team. And if they delegate someone, they have a lever for exerting influence upon those people who will be part of that team. So it's important to see whether the president-elect manages to build good relations with this so-called deep state, and also build contacts and relations with the voters. If he keeps his promises, his authority is growing, and he can use that authority to become an independent political figure, even in his relations with those influence groups that help him arrive in power. It's a very complex process. What's going to happen in the US is something we cannot tell for sure, but I'm hopeful that our relations with the United States of America will be re-established at a certain point in time, and we are open to that. Thank you.